You're listening to The Rewatchables 1999 from Luminary Media. I'm Bill Simmons. I'm joined by Chris Ryan and Sean Fennessy. Coming up, a Hodgepodge episode of Rewatchables 1999. Okay, so we've been going through 1999 movies this whole year, basically. We've done a couple on the Rewatchables feed. We've done 13 on the Rewatchables 1999 feed. Couldn't get to everything. And there's some movies that happened this year that are very synonymous with the year itself. Maybe weren't quite worthy of a Rewatchables entire episode categories. I would say the big loser here is American Beauty, which we kind of just didn't want to go over for an hour. Mm-hmm. It's a really disturbing movie to watch in retrospect. We're going to talk about Blair Witch, 8mm, Being John Malkovich, American Beauty, Outside Providence, Go, Rushmore, and Three Kings.
How did you choose these movies?
Well, these are just the 8 movies that were on our list of should we do rewatch, and they basically got cut. These are the Ralph Cox of Rewatchables 1999 movies.
Trey Burke.
Yeah.
So, is it because they weren't popular enough or interesting enough to warrant their own episode, or what was your?
Yeah, is there anything on
calculus?
here that you're like, oh, I
thought it was all of our calculus. Is there, out of all those movies, which one would you have been the most fired up to do?
Well, it's funny because like some of them are big hits and some of them are cult classics. The Blair Witch was a huge hit.
Yeah, I think Blair Witch is probably the most important quote unquote.
Well, let's
movie
talk
here.
about that first, because we thought that was going to be a Rewatchables 1999, and it's actually
I advocated for that. I'll just say that
it's not a good movie.
Yeah.
It was a good movie in 1999. Now it's just people walking around the woods going, "Fuck, fuck,
What's it?
Lisa, what's going on? Fuck!"
Has horror evolved that much from there?
I don't know.
No.
It's just nobody from the movie went on to do anything.
That's
the movie's been ripped
really
off
underrating
700
the fact
times.
that 80% of America was like, did that happen?
Right. So let's talk about
That's
that.
fucking crazy.
But we can do this in 5 minutes. This movie comes out. There's buzz for it. Nobody knows if the found footage thing is real or not. I saw the movie opening night, Kendall Square, Cambridge, Massachusetts, and the movie ended, and people kind of staggered out of the theater like, "Oh my God, that guy killed that girl. I can't believe that." Like, we didn't know if it was real.
Yeah.
And now it seems insane that we didn't know it was real, but we honestly didn't.
You skipped a beat here.
Okay.
I mean, this movie premiered at Sundance and then was the product of one of the greatest marketing campaigns in movie history. Like, that's why we thought it was real, because they made us think that it was real.
But I didn't know about Sundance
it.
in 1999. There was the whole movie journalism infrastructure thing was not in place like it would be later.
It wasn't as much in place, but there was less information. There was less to get. So if you only got a trailer,
Right.
some snippets. They set up their very own website, which was pretty innovative at the time.
Yeah.
And if you went to that website, it was very bare bones, but it seemed like it was a documentation of this horrifying act. I definitely thought it was real.
Yeah.
I mean, I was 17, but I did think it was real.
We were made to think it was a documentary.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the reason we were made to think that was because every actor in it I'd never seen before. And they did a good job of shielding all the actors. I think if you tried to do this now, it's debunked in 5 minutes.
I think also, like, let's untangle it. If it was real, it would be a supernatural snuff film that would be the most important event in the history of America.
Yeah.
Like, this would be worthy of the FBI's attention, the CIA's attention. Like, it would be a huge deal. People died in the woods because of a
I think you have
supernatural
to take into
force.
consideration though, like the style with which it was made. So the reason why I think people were questioning whether or not it was real wasn't because they were like, oh, they just released a snuff movie into the theaters. It's just like you get lost in it, and that was like kind of like maybe one of the hallmarks of '99 was one of the last times we were able to really get lost in the magic of movies and allow like that suspension of disbelief to take over, which I think is what we were feeling that opening night. Is even if you did know, okay, like this is a Sundance success story. These people have like scraped together the budget, made this movie in the woods. There was a part of you that was like, I kind of believe this is true.
Or I want to believe this is true. Also, can't be overstated. This is the first found footage movie. And if you're just talking about what movie has influenced the most versions of the same movie, this is in the top 12, I would say, from the last 40 years. There's been 50 found footage horror movies since this movie.
I've made
everyone trying
billions
to
of dollars since then.
Paranormal Activity alone, there was like 8 of them.
Yeah.
I think I've seen all of them too. But the whole concept of, oh, it's like a home movie. I'm just hanging out with these people. And oh, wait, wait, the stuffed animal just moved. What the fuck's going on?
Yeah, they walked past that tree before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
None of them have tried to replicate the feeling of realness, though, that this movie goes for. Because of the almost like the shoddy way that this movie is made, it feels closer to somebody who is somewhat incompetent making a movie. Paranormal Activity has got some kind of slick moves inside of it. You know, it feels more like a Hollywood product, even though it was made very cheaply. This movie is, and I think you said it at the top, it's like, it's kind of bad. And it's kind of bad on purpose, and it's kind of bad because they didn't totally know what they were doing yet. It's a lot of young people who made the movie, a lot of young actors who made the movie.
Blair Witch 2, they actually tried to make
Into
more
like
polished, and it
Into
sucked.
like the
Nobody liked
mythology
it.
around it.
Yeah, it was like, oh, this sucks. It was actually better to have the whole movie with bad acting.
Yeah.
Right. And then they recently.
Fuck! Where are we?
That's very effective.
It's
though.
40 minutes of that, and first time you see it, it's terrifying, and you're really scared. It's not very rewatchable.
Do you rewatch horror movies?
I
Other
rewatch
ones?
a lot of
Yeah.
horror movies. Yeah, like I tried to get my son into this one, but at that point, he had seen other found footage movies,
Oh.
and he was just like, "This is bad." The ending's good.
Yeah.
You know, I think the key part of this is the last 4 minutes when the wheels have just come off, and she's running around looking for her friend. And then he's
I think the last
facing the wall.
35 minutes, like once they realize they've been walking in circles, it really, really gets intense.
Yeah, and there's the famous shot of the camera right underneath her nose, and she gets the snot bubble, and she's crying, which I think was featured in the trailer, which kind of
Yes.
got people to feel
Yeah.
like, oh my God, there's something desperate happening in this
Yeah.
movie. And then the final shot of just the guy staring at the wall is somehow like the most haunting image ever, even though it's so simple.
So I've done this one to my son a couple times where he comes out of his bathroom after brushing his teeth at night, and I'm just in the corner like this. And it is scary. Like, it's a scary. He's like, Dad, stop. But
That's really
that-
creepy.
When's the
And I've
last
gotten-
time you did that to him?
probably recently.
Being your son
Maybe
must
like
be really weird.
last 2 weeks. That last image, though, I got a lot of mileage out of in my columns about like that quarterback was so scared. He was just turned around looking at the Blair Witch wall.
Yeah.
So it did become this iconic thing. And I do think this was one of the iconic 1999 movies. I think if you're going to list
Oh, yeah.
what are the top 7 most memorable movies in 1999, I think this is one of them. I just don't think it's worthy of an entire podcast. I'm surprised the girl never went on to anything.
She's good in the film. One of the guys, I think the
Josh.
cameraman, Joshua Leonard, he actually did go on to have, has a career.
He
as
was
an
in like
actor.
the Steven Soderbergh movie like 2 years ago.
I've always dug the girl from Paranormal Activity. Just I want you guys to know that.
Katie Featherston.
Yeah, I always thought she was going to have a career.
Never
Never
took
really
off.
happened. Let's talk about Three Kings, a movie I'm not really into, but I know one of you likes.
Who wants you? Make the fight for freedom on your own. Then America will follow. God bless America, and God bless a free Iraq.
I wrote about it for our 99 Movies
Yeah, yeah.
package. Yeah, I'm a huge fan. I think it's one of the only good modern war movies. It's one of the only good movies about
Where do you start
modern war.
You start like post like Iraq.
21st century.
Mhm.
Yeah, 21st century.
Catches Clooney at the perfect time to get Clooney, basically. He's been
Mhm.
on ER for 4 years. He's just about to leave. He can lead a movie.
Great casting. What if? Because David O. Russell desperately wanted Nicolas Cage, who did Bring Out the Dead instead. So he finally like relented and let Clooney do it.
I think it's just a triumph of tone. It's a funny movie that has an incredible tragedy in it. And it's part satire, part feels like a verite documentary, part feels like an SNL sketch. It's a really strange movie. And it sounds like it was complete hell making it. It's amazing.
Fuck! Fuck! Where am I?
And yeah, it sounds like Clooney and David O. Russell fucking hated each other.
So that, to me, that's more the legacy of this movie, but you think it's actually one of the best war movies the last 20 years. I think the legacy of the movie is a legendary shit show behind the scenes during a time when people were still pretty open about like the Premiere Magazine expose of what was going on.
Access to that.
Now
stuff
it's
is a
like it
little
would leak on the internet. We would never know what's true and not true, and people would be trying to control it the whole time. Back then, stuff would get out that was bubbling up for weeks and weeks and then blow up in a major way.
And they would be
that's-
asked about it all the time. I mean, I think the fight started because David O. Russell was driving someone really hard on the set, and George Clooney did not like the way that Russell was directing someone.
Yeah, there was a couple of like tall tales from the set. One was that David O. Russell ignored a person who was having a seizure. That was like an extra who was having a seizure, and David O. Russell was just like, "Let's set up the next shot." The other was that there was some stunt, and David O. Russell like laid into a driver, and Clooney like came to the guy's defense.
Clooney,
one of the famous white knights of Hollywood.
Yeah.
Like best reputation of anybody in the world. Russell, notoriously very dyspeptic, emotional filmmaker who, like, a few years later we see in the making of I Heart Huckabees, he's screaming at Lily Tomlin at the
It's
top
like
of
you
his
and
lungs.
Chris.
Yeah.
Chris, famous white knight.
Me
Yeah,
and
Also,
Nightmare.
I'm
Yeah.
really
Asshole Nightmare.
known throughout the town for my pranks.
Yeah, but I'm a genius director, and you're
That time
married to a mall.
he filled your car up with Cheetos.
Yeah.
It was hilarious.
What a good guy.
I wanted to say one thing about all these directors, this 99 class, and where they've gone from here. Because Russell's a really interesting case where he's obviously kind of petered out a little bit over the last couple of years, I think. And Spike Jonze, who did Malkovich, right? And so he's in Three Kings. He's around there. There's obviously a lot of stylistic similarities to some things that happen in Three Kings to Fight Club. So you can tell that these guys are all kind of a generation, of a class together.
Mhm.
It's interesting to look to see what's happened to them since the last 20 years.
There's one other director, Fincher and Alexander Payne.
Mhm.
There's a lot of OG last 25 years, people who get mentioned as the best directors the last 25 years, all just happen to make a movie this year.
Yeah, Paul
which
Thomas
is-
Anderson. Same
And Paul
thing.
Thomas Anderson.
Yeah.
One of
Which
the
is
last
weird.
group of auteurs. I mean, I guess you could put Nolan in here, but he makes blockbuster genre movies. But these are the guys
Nolan
that
wasn't this year, though.
no, but
Yeah.
I just mean that these are the studio directors that the studios actually spent money on these guys.
And
Yeah,
the Farrelly
this is
brothers.
Rushmore too.
Yeah.
All these guys, and you're right. The I think particularly Three Kings and
Fight Club to some extent.
Fight Club are the last two big ticket, expensive, big budget movies that are basically original material that are really difficult to watch and like don't have a broad pop audience. And the whole system kind of starts to fall in on itself right after this.
Do you watch this movie when it's on? Because I don't. I'm not like, oh, cool, Three Kings is on.
I did like revisiting it. When I wrote about it, I watched it a couple of times, and I really did like rewatching it because it's pretty funny. A lot of the Spike Jonze stuff is really funny. It's a good Wahlberg performance.
Yeah.
It's right before he kind of goes into superstar. I have to be the lead of every movie I'm in mode, and I don't know. It's also a good Ice Cube
His weird dalliance with Russell is so funny, like him being in this and Huckabees
and The Fighter.
and The Fighter. Yeah.
Yeah,
Then
Well-
he switches to Pete Berg.
I saw,
Four Kings.
I watched Perfect Storm last weekend, and Wahlberg is still in the.
I don't want to give away any of our Perfect Storm rewatchables
All right, I
material
won't.
here.
But it was funny that Wahlberg is in the. 10 years later, I would be in the Clooney part, but right now I'm in this guy's part.
Yeah.
It's weird.
I'm in like the Val Kilmer and Heat part, but I'm not De Niro yet.
Why do you think he played second fiddle to Clooney twice in 5 years? That's kind of funny.
I just don't feel like he felt like he was a leading guy for a long, or maybe Hollywood didn't think that. Even when he was in Boogie Nights, the reaction was always kind of like, Mark Wahlberg's in this?
Yeah.
Marky Mark? From the underwear with his pants hanging out singing, what was the song?
Good Vibrations.
Good
Yeah.
Vibrations? That
Yeah.
guy's going to be the lead of the movie?
You love Good Vibrations.
It's a great song. Yeah. I like to listen to it when I do pranks.
Go?
So this chick, she's bobbing up and down on my dick like she's fucking Marilyn Chambers, you know?
actually found your dick?
So then she moves around the outside, she's painting a tree, and whack, it hits her in the eye. And her contact, it's like stuck on the end of my dick.
Fucking love Go.
This would be a
This
good
was the one.
rewatchables.
This was the
So-
one.
It's got a lot of stuff.
Leaving 1999, if you had given me like a quiz, like an exit poll, and you would have said, what are the 7 movies that are going to last from this year? I absolutely would have had Go in there. And an awesome cast. It was really original. It was a great DVD. It had a good soundtrack. I remember it was one of the rare, like, I have to buy this CD soundtracks.
Oh yeah.
It was just great. And it was one of those movies that you could watch and then watch again 2 weeks later. And for some reason, it didn't hold up.
Yeah.
And it hasn't kind of gotten that same kind of run that even a movie like Empire Records, I feel like, has better legs.
Well, I think that Go was viewed as a little bit of like Hollywood trying to cash in on alternative culture.
Absolutely.
So it had that going against it.
So Chuck Klosterman was against it immediately?
No, I don't even know if he was like, I don't even know if Chuck likes it or dislikes Go, but it did feel like kind of like a major label record instead of an indie rock record. It wasn't Dazed and Confused. It was like, let's take like whatever the hot music is, 7 cool actors, let's get Katie Holmes in there, and then let's make it feel like it's like doing ecstasy and hanging out in LA.
But it's almost like the Scott Wolf casting screwed this up for them. Because he
for
was
you,
like,
but not for me.
No, I think he's really good in this movie.
But you were a Party of 5 fan, and I never watched that show. So for me, I was like, who's Scott Wolf?
Right.
Because this was coming off
You were just like Jay Moore.
I was like, I'm in the Jay Moore hive.
Jay Moore. But this was coming off like I know he did last summer in Cruel Intentions, where they're grabbing TV actors and putting them into movies. And I think if they had an unknown person in the Scott Wolf role who became more famous 3 years later, because Oliphant's in this movie,
Yeah.
nobody knew the fuck
He
he
was-
was,
yeah, he was a
and
nobody.
he's excellent. Like he became like, oh, that guy from Go for me for 5 years.
Yep.
So they were close on that end from a casting thing. I think they almost would have been better off going all unknowns instead of hot young actors. I always like having
This is
Katie
also
Holmes.
the very, I mean, for as much as it's 99, it is the very tail end of Pulp Fiction ripoffs too,
Mhm.
where it was like, let's get 16 people to be in a short story anthology about crime in a city and like things to do in Denver when you're dead. And
Mhm.
was it 6 days, 3 days in the Valley?
Yeah, it's basically
in the Valley,
it's
yeah.
inspired by, the Gimp. The
Yeah.
Gimp in Pulp Fiction. Like, whoa, what if a whole movie was weird shit like that?
Right.
And drugs. And
Yeah.
fast music.
And it is like that youth culture thing. I think a lot of it is, so sometimes I think the movies that filmmakers make about youth culture that are happening from their past that are seen through like the prism of 20 years ago
Like
work
Dazed.
really well.
Yeah.
Dazed and Confused, American Graffiti. The movies about youth culture that are set in present times are really hard to make.
Yeah.
And
That's
so-
like what Kids is like. It's like Kids and like 5 other movies, maybe.
That work well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this one is, I think it's a really fun movie, but it's got like Fatboy Slim and No Doubt all over the soundtrack. And it's like, when's the last time you thought about Fatboy Slim? Like that feels like archaeology to watch.
That's
a
what
movie with
makes
that.
it feel so 1999-ish. Like some of the actors that are in the music, this whole kind of tail end of ripping off Pulp Fiction. Doug
Mhm.
Lyman.
Did you have an electronic music phase? Did you buy Moby's Play?
It was 4 months in 1996, 97
Yeah.
range.
How deep did you
Culminating in my love for the Saint.
get? Did you ever go to a rave?
Where I was like, the Saint, man, it's figured this out.
Did you almost move
I had
to
the Saint
Germany?
I had the Saint on CD and DVD.
Wow.
I was like, this is great.
Did you go to ever go to like a nightclub or a rave?
No,
or anything?
I lived in Boston. It wasn't. If there was an electronic underground scene, I don't know where it was. Did you go to that stuff?
I not like raves, but I went out. Yeah,
I had my friend Jen Morris.
Wow, that's very mysterious.
it's not that deep.
I went out. Did you play pranks in the clubs?
My friend Jen Morris got into it in '96,
Uh-huh.
and she had been an old school, like dated dudes with long hair, classic rock, Guns N' Roses, kind of that kind of music. And all of a sudden, she's like, "I love this," and she's playing me some of the songs. I'm like, "What the fuck is going on?"
She dropping X listening to Chemical Brothers.
People really got into it,
Yeah.
and it really did feel like a moment there for
Ecstasy
like,
helped. Yeah,
yeah. It had
Did
a
it?
year.
Did it help?
it helped enjoy Chemical Brothers.
Got it.
Yeah,
What's interesting is they took the best pieces of it and just bled it into hip hop and
Mhm.
different things, and they almost like so it couldn't have lived on anyway. But
I was just a teenager when this stuff was happening, and I got all this information from magazines. And I remember reading Spin and thinking, like, I guess the Chemical Brothers and like,
Underworld.
I guess this
The
is the
Orb.
most important music. I guess I have to wrap my brain around the idea that this is the vanguard of popular music, and like it kind of was.
Yeah.
But it also was like just one big marketing ploy for record labels to be like, we have something new now. You know, we're past grunge. We're into a new
It
realm
helped
of
that-
youth culture.
alternative was kind of dying or fading into something else, and it felt fresh.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas, in alternative, it's like, hey, the Wallflowers are coming on. Jacob Dylan's really good.
Kind of like that first album.
I do as well. But you're talking yourself into stuff in
yeah,
the mid-90s.
that's true.
This is a good movie, and I don't know why it didn't have legs. Next one, being John Malkovich.
Mr. Malcolm, sir, with all due respect, I discovered that portal. I mean, it's my livelihood, do you understand?
It's my head, Schwartz. It's my head. I will see you in court.
A movie that I'm not a fan of. I've seen it once.
I was surprised you even wanted to talk about
Well,
it.
I think it's an important 1999 movie and accomplished a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
It was very meta during an era when not a lot of movies were playing that card. Spike Jonze kind of at the height of people thinking he was a possible like true genius. And it's just weird. And it definitely stood out. This was not a rewatchable for me. Where do you stand, Chris?
I wanted to ask Fantasy a question about this. I'm like, I'm like okay on this movie. I've seen it like twice, I think. Once when it came, like once then and once after. But do you feel like Spike Jonze has wasted some of his potential?
Or did he
Ooh.
outkick his coverage?
I will say I'm more a fan of his his later work than I am of his early work.
Hmm.
At the time he was the nerdy, artistic little brother music video director figure of the big time music video director figures like Michael Bay and David Fincher. You know, he came like right after those guys, and he made a lot of amazing music videos. And he's born out of skate culture, and he made a lot of skater videos. And he had like he obviously has a brilliant visual mind. And I always thought he clung to Charlie Kaufman, the screenwriter, because Charlie Kaufman was the only person who could like make the written version of whatever was happening in his mind. He was like a perfect counterpart for him. But as Spike Jonze has gotten older, and he doesn't make a lot of movies anymore, but I was such a big fan of Her. I don't think you were a big fan of that either. But that was a way more personal movie about a real person trying to deal with something. And I think a lot of his early movies are like very stunty because he doesn't totally know how he feels about the world yet.
He's also, I mean, gone away from the traditional way like we think about feature film directors, which is that they're supposed to put out a movie every 2 or 3 years. And he's spent a lot of time working on like Vice News or you know, I mean, he spent a lot of time working on commercials. He
made a commercial with Apple last year that is like the craziest, best music video I've ever seen. And it won a bunch of awards, but nobody really watched it because it was just a commercial for Apple. And he's having a strange, like, itinerant career. He doesn't see.
Well, he has the whole Viceland thing's been really odd.
Yeah,
Like
although I'm sure he got paid a lot of money to do that.
He got paid a lot of money, but was being positioned as this guy's going to reinvent cable TV.
And it sounds like he actually did that. Like he actually, like sometimes people will be like, we're going to bring Steven Spielberg on to be the creative imagination director of this.
Yeah, he really put in the time.
And he's like, cool, I'm going to also go make 3 movies this year.
Yeah.
Spike Jonze actually like worked on Viceland. It was,
oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But I just think his whole presence as a creative person was like commentary on his own youth culture. It's like the Sabotage video by Beastie Boys. It's just like it's basically a parody of a thing that he grew up on, that you grew up on.
Yeah.
And I think he started to get past that and kind of like wasn't totally sure which direction to go. And I think he makes movies very rarely now because he thinks that it's like a really big statement. It takes a lot of time. And so I don't know if it's so much that he like has let opportunities slip past him.
No, I don't think that. I don't think it's more just like, I think if you would ask me in 1999 who the biggest filmmaker of his generation would be, I think a lot of people would have said Spike Jonze.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something to it.
Well, Viceland now, you could be like, tonight at 8, Roadhouse. It's like, not sure they reinvented cable TV
No,
with
they
that
definitely
one.
did not.
Craig's like, I'm in.
I mean, we barely talked about the movie. The movie is like, it's very, very strange. Even by the standards of 1999 movies, it is really, really
Was this a big
strange.
studio?
I want to say it was.
I feel like Pot was really good in the late 90s, and that fueled a lot of this.
It was Gramercy Pictures, and ultimately what became Focus Features.
Okay. Pot was better.
I'm not saying it was better. I just think that it had a really good
It was
run
way
in the late
more
90s.
of a dice roll. Like now you get, here's the recipe of what you're getting. Here's how it's going to make you feel. It's like standing on a beach in Hawaii.
They're putting like bug spray in the pot back then, and we don't realize it. We're like,
God.
this is great.
Bug spray.
I see 5 cars outside in
You
an
bought
empty
like
parking lot.
a
What's
nickel bag
happening?
outside of a gas station in the Fens, and you're just like, this is
So being John
fantastic.
Malkovich made sense. Speaking of pot,
He bought a bag of oregano.
speaking of pot, outside Providence.
What's a prep school?
It's to prepare you for not getting your neck broke by me. You're just goddamn lucky Kavich had pulled with the judge. Grass, no license. You hit a parked cop car. Don't get me started again, Dildo.
One of the great put this on at 11:30 after you've just all smoked a bowl movies anyone's ever made. I have no idea why this movie didn't become more popular. I have a ton of Sean Hatosi stock from 1999. I fucking love Amy Smart.
I think it's Hattasy. I don't think it's Hatosi.
It's got Alec Baldwin early, like buying in early on Alec Baldwin as
Alec
like the
Baldwin
grumpy
is
old guy.
incredible in this movie.
It's
so funny.
Completely politically incorrect, 9 different ways, and has
Isn't one of the characters named Drugs?
Drugs Delaney.
Drugs Delaney. It's just so good. I don't understand why this isn't thought of as like Dazed and Confused.
Is it?
It is
so good.
It's so good. I
It's
love
pretty
this
fun.
movie.
It's fun.
But I think I'm also from New England, so a lot of this stuff, like them trying to get in the Pats game and stuff like that. But the drug humor is really, it's the perfect movie if you're high to watch because they made it for you.
Yeah.
And it's just like these guys are in a boarding school and
Couple
all
of
they really
druggy
have
movies
is
from
pot.
this year.
Yeah, very. This is based on Farrelly's novel, right? Didn't Farrelly write a novel? I don't know if it's called Outside Providence. It might be called Outside Providence.
No, it's one of them wrote the novel, and then I think the other one directed it.
Yeah.
But I just really love this movie.
It's fun.
I was proud to own it on DVD. I
think
love when it comes
I don't think
on.
I've seen it in 20 years.
The best part is
It's really funny.
My favorite part by far is when the schoolmaster calls him into the office and he reads the letter from Drugs
Drugs
Delaney.
Delaney.
That part is unbelievably funny.
There's also the first time. It's a good like boarding school love story with him and Amy Smart, where she's kind of the unattainable, and then they kind of bond over. He finds out she likes to get high, and they go like in the woods and they'd smoke. And
I feel like circa 2008 during the financial crash, you took a bath because of all your Sean Hattasy and Amy Smart stock. I feel like really they both went bankrupt.
I made money on Amy
He
Smart.
was the Fannie and Freddie of Sean Hattasy.
I made money on Amy Smart.
Did
what,
you?
What do I have to be ashamed
Where's
of?
she at right now?
Road Trip.
Uh-huh.
She was in good mood. She had a really good 5-6 year career. Varsity Blues, Road Trip,
Yeah.
outside Providence.
Where
Did
she-
some TV stuff.
But-
It's great. Actresses like that have a 6-year shelf life. I made money in Ally Larder stock.
Did you?
Yeah, Heroes sold at
Oh,
the peak.
yeah. Heroes
Heroes
is good.
came back.
Right.
I'm like, I'm selling.
Amy Smart never got her Heroes.
I
moment.
held Diane Lane stock for 20 years.
That's
and
different.
You and me,
then, no,
Bobby.
she didn't work for 8 years.
Yeah, but she's like an Oscar-nominated actor now.
Late when I have kept the stock.
Oh, you're
know,
like,
but-
I had that at The Outsiders.
Oh, I had it in the outs. No, I had it in Perfect Romance.
When did you
1980.
cash in on Amy Smart then? When did you say it's time for me to
Road
move
trip.
off of this investment?
Road
That's when
trip,
you
I'm
moved
getting
off
out.
of it.
And
No.
but this Sean Hattasy stock is in a safe deposit box.
Who's the one? Michelle Moynihan?
Monahan.
Michelle Monahan?
Holding that stock forever.
I still have it.
One of my queens.
Didn't sell it. She pops up all over the place.
Any other guys?
Some guys. Sean Hattasy's a big mess. I had to pronounce his name incorrectly. It's just, I haven't thought about him in a while.
That was a good one.
Hatosi? Hattasy? You
He
sure
was
it's
on-
Hattasy?
He was on Southland, right? That was a good show.
Yeah, everybody.
He's had a good career. Like
Yeah.
he's been in a bunch. He's just
you've
become
been
one of
shouting
those
out
guys.
Southland recently. It's
I
good.
really like Southland. Have you ever seen that? The TNT cop show? One of the better cop shows I've ever seen.
You don't support Baldwin in this movie?
I do. I love him. I said I think he's hilarious. I think it's one of his funniest performances.
This movie's really good. Anyone who hasn't seen it, screw off.
What's the famous line where he's like, making sex is like Chinese takeout?
Making sex is like Chinese dinner. It ain't over until you both get your cookies. So,
Next one, 8mm.
Now empty those bullets onto the table very carefully.
Look, I don't know why you think...
You shut up, you fuck!
I'll put an arrow right through your goddamn throat, you understand?
This is good. This is
Solo pod.
This is
clear out.
one where I think
You want me
it's
to clear
like,
out? You want ISO?
I think this is good if
You want to stand?
you make an opening statement.
Want to space the floor for me?
Yeah, I'm gonna stand in the corner. I'll shoot the 3.
I would argue
I'm on the bench.
one of the most rewatchable cable movies from this year. Always sucks me in. It's got Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah.
Early.
Yeah.
Super weird.
Max, California.
Really exploring the studio space, working in the porn store.
Exploring the studio
Oh,
space.
he's really like, this is where he's like, I'm tired of this River Phoenix shit. I don't want to be his little brother anymore.
He's got his like devil horn
I'm a good
hair.
fucking actor. I'm going to be really weird and good in this movie. Nick Cage, when I still believe Nick Cage was one of the best actors of this generation, really going for it as well. As like, they're trying to set up this terrible subplot of he's just had a baby with Catherine Keener, but now he's searching for this dead girl. And they're trying to juxtapose, this could have been his daughter. And they're just hammering you over the head with it. It's got really bad moments, which is why I enjoy it. One of the key characters, Machine,
What do you
played by
mean? What
Chris
one of
Bauer.
the key characters?
Well, he's the guy. He has the
No,
leather
I know in
mask
the
on.
movie, but you really like.
Let's explain Machine to the listeners.
Well, Machine is an S&M porn snuff murderer.
That's exactly
Nick Cage
right.
has to take him down.
Yes, he's an S&M porn
And then he showed
snuff
up.
murderer.
He showed up that same
This is
year.
one of the most rewatchable movies to you.
He showed up in 61 as, I think he was not Roger Maris or Mickey Mantle, but like Yogi Berra or something.
Okay.
But then he was in The Wire season 2.
Yeah,
He's
Sabatka.
Frank Sabatka.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys. I like him. This movie's good. You guys are just wrong.
I'm not saying it's bad. I just don't know how much you can really talk about it. It's like it's one of those weird, like they shut the door on movies like this.
It's one of the most depraved studio movies ever
Yeah.
made. It's a
That's
movie
why I love
about
it.
it's a movie about a man hunting down the makers of snuff films.
Yeah.
It seems like a time
What's wrong with
when
that?
they had enough movies going at every studio that somebody was just like, oh, Schumacher and Cage, they're making a thriller called it sounds great. You guys let me know when you're done. And then they like got it at the end and they were like, what? There's a scene where Nick Cage watches a snuff film.
Unbelievable Gandolfini.
Yes.
Right before he's Tony Soprano.
He plays the talent scout.
Dino Bravo. I don't even know what that guy's name is, but that guy's really going for it.
Peter Stormare.
He owns the porn company who basically what happens is this rich guy who has so much money doesn't know what to do anymore paid them $1 million to get a snuff film.
To acquire one.
His lawyer, who is Dr. Hannibal Lecter's doctor.
Yeah.
That guy who's also evil.
Anthony Heald.
And at the end, Nick Cage's like, why did he do this? Why? And the doctor's like, because he could. I love answers like that.
I think
this
when I
movie
saw
hits a lot
this-
of my check marks.
It's weird. When I saw this movie, I was like, I'm too young for this movie.
You might have been.
And I was 20, and I was like, I don't get it. And I don't get it. This is so depraved
So
so dark.
The best man at my wedding, Jeff Gallo, he's the only other person I know who loves this movie. And he'll just like randomly text me Machine's picture at 3:30 on a Thursday and be like, kill them all, Machine. We just thought this movie's so bad. I love it. It's bad good.
It's the first script that Andrew Kevin Walker had sold after 7. And it's obviously from the same guy who wrote 7. But apparently Joel Schumacher changed it a lot. And Andrew Kevin Walker disowned it.
Like, he couldn't have brightened it up.
I think that I think that a lot of that Catherine Keener stuff you're talking about, they wedged into the movie.
Oh, yeah.
That's a real like studio note thing.
She's so like
Schumacher
she's
is
such an appendage in this.
He's
She has no character.
Schumacher is so good at making good bad movies.
Oh, he's got a million of them.
Like Flatliners, like St. Elmo's, like they're so watchable, and then you're like, this is.
I think you guys got to give this one another chance. It's Nick Cage right before he becomes a self-parody.
I totally know
it's all the seeds of Nick Cage self-parody.
We've both seen it a couple of times.
I think it might be his first truly bad performance.
Yeah.
This is where he does
Mrs. Walker, the film is real. The film is real. It's so bad. I love it. I'd watch it right now if it was on.
You think this is the beginning of Not the Bees, Nick Cage?
Oh, this is the bridge from Oscars, Con Air, Face Off. This guy's going to have a massive career to, this might get weird.
It got really weird. It was kind of a hit though.
It was because it was a good movie.
Yeah. Yeah. It was also a time when
at the time though.
Yeah.
Critics hated it.
They were wrong.
Do you know who loved this movie?
Raj?
My guy.
Roger Ebert.
I didn't know that.
There's been two great somebody infiltrating the world of porn to try to solve a crime movies.
I know what you're going to say. Hardcore.
Hardcore with George C. Scott.
This feels a lot like Hardcore.
It is. They should make this movie every 20 years.
Yeah.
Hardcore with George C. Scott ends with he finds the film with his daughter in it and starts watching it, and they just pan in on him in the theater, and he's like, just for like 3 minutes. It's unbelievable. The 70s are the weirdest decade for movies that has ever happened. This is the same as like Cruising.
Yeah.
This whole era where people are like, this would be cool to put on film. a guy for 3 minutes watching his daughter in a porn movie. This will work. Let's do this.
Yeah, a lot of 70s movies end with like it's like a journey into hell, and then the hero gets killed. That's the 70s movie.
End credits.
Yeah. It's like Roy Scheider goes to the jungle to drive a truck full of like explosives and then dies. That's the 70s.
The fact that Joaquin Phoenix, Nick Cage, and Gandolfini are all in this movie is notable and feels very 1999-ish to me. This was the first movie that made me think Joaquin Phoenix was actually going to be a good actor.
If Joaquin was coming on your pod for the Joker, how many 8mm questions do you think you'd ask him?
I'd start it off.
Yeah.
Hey, man, got to ask about 8mm. I know you don't get this too often.
Yeah.
There are earlier Joaquin performances that are really good.
Yeah, he was great in Parenthood.
Yeah, but he's
a
kid in Parenthood, though.
Yeah,
he's a teenager in To Die For. He's an adult in this movie.
He is. But he was, you could tell really early on that he's got something weird and special about his whole character, his whole presence. Max California is one of his weirder roles, though. Is Max California your prankster name?
Speaking of weird movies, American Beauty.
Sorry I'm late. No, that's quite all right, dear. Your father and I were just discussing his day at work. Why don't you tell our daughter about it, honey?
Janie, today I quit my job. And then I told my boss to go fuck himself, and then I blackmailed him for almost $60,000. Pass the asparagus.
Your father seems to think this kind of behavior is something to be proud of.
And your mother seems to prefer that I go through life like a fucking prisoner while she keeps my dick in a mason jar under the sink.
How dare you speak to me that way in front of her?
It's the most decorated movie of 1999. It was probably, leaving that year, the most respected movie that anyone made this year as like the least amount of flaws of a good movie.
Mm-hmm.
It made Spacey an A+ list star. It belongs in 1999 because the central theme of this is a middle-aged man trying to fuck high schoolers, which I don't think that gets greenlit now. This movie will never be on cable again because Kevin Spacey is in it trying to fuck high school girls. It ends with him getting murdered by Chris Cooper. All of this movie is just absolutely bizarre and not a movie that I think anyone under 30 would ever probably watch.
But
unless they're in
at the
film
Oscars,
school.
we were just like, yep, American Beauty.
You're like, boom.
I almost don't know how to talk about it at this point. Not because of the Spacey stuff, but just because it did feel like a radical comment on the mundanity of suburban life at the time. And it now feels like the most up your own ass
trait,
like cliche,
Hallmark card
silly
observations.
Yes, exactly.
Plastic bag floating. So when you saw the plastic bag scene, this is not like a trial or anything. Were you like, that's pretty cool? Or were you like, this is pretty stupid?
I don't even remember. I haven't seen this movie in 10 years.
Wes Bentley's character is like a loner drug dealer, high school kid who moves to town, and he starts seducing Jane, who's Kevin Spacey's daughter, played by Thora Birch. And he's always filming things. And at one point they're filming a plastic bag that's kind of floating in the wind. And he uses the plastic bag floating in the wind as sort of like a comment on the ephemeral nature of life. You know, we're all just kind of floating in the wind, unattached.
And it's the most beautiful thing he's ever seen, and his heart's breaking because of how much beauty there is in the world. And that was like a real, like, put that in my yearbook page thing.
I watched it 2 years ago before all the Spacey stuff broke because it was on. And I just hadn't even thought of the movie. And, you know, it obviously had some self-parody moments, but it was also really well acted and really well done. And it was like, oh yeah, this movie was good. Like I don't know if it should have won Best Picture, but yeah, I remember why this movie became a thing. And it tapped into some stuff, you know, some middle-aged stuff and things that people were just kind of a lot weirder about in the 90s. This was the decade that ended with the Anna Kournikova countdown clock and people wondering when the Olsen twins were going to turn 18. And you could joke about this stuff in different ways. Also, Annette Bening's really good in this movie. And I think
Cooper's good.
And
Sam Mendes had a huge career out of this movie.
And Mina Suvari's really good in this movie. Like, everybody's really good in this movie. Wes Bentley. This was coming out of this movie. People thought Wes Bentley was going to be the next guy.
Had some personal struggles.
Oh, yeah, to say the least.
Yeah.
But I think it's
tricky.
The legacy of this movie now is that it's basically it's vanished. It's gone.
I think
it's like Matt Lauer. It's just history.
That's right. Yeah, it's a good comparison. I think because of the Spacey stuff, it's been deleted. But I think also critically, people think it's like Chris said. It's like a really trite, simple oversimplification of middle-aged crisis.
But I also think that was part of the point of the movie. I felt like it was taking the middle-aged crisis thing and actually doing a crazy version of it because it was having fun with the whole concept of a middle-aged crisis movie. So I actually thought it was at a chessboard. It was like actually a couple pieces ahead of that concept.
I think for every pawn move forward, there's like one step back in the movie.
Yeah,
that's kind of
fair.
the problem with it.
Yeah.
Like, it is really trying to say something, and it's trying to explore really complicated themes about like adult sexuality and what happens to a marriage after a certain period of time and what is your career really about. Like, I respect that it's trying to do that.
It was also, I think, rode a really weird line between over the top kind of slapsticky performance. Like, Annette Bening's character is dialed really high up.
Yep.
She's like way over the top. And Spacey's, even his voiceover is like very strange and very like in a different movie. And then the kids are all kind of acting in like almost more of an indie movie kind of thing.
Exactly. I think part of the step back stuff is a lot of the Thora Birch and Wes Bentley stuff is really self-serious.
Yeah.
And not funny.
And then the Kevin Spacey stuff is like really black comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The big thing, though, that is just lost now with this movie was in the moment how good Spacey was. Because this was a Kevin Spacey movie and he's really peak of his powers. basically turns this same character into the House of Cards guy, and was really good at it. And we came out of this movie and we thought he was one of the best 5 actors we had. And now, as we know more about him, and he actually just might be this guy in real life in a lot of ways, and that part's creepy too. I would never watch this movie again now.
I think he's setting aside all of the personal drama with him, I was a big fan of his when I was a teenager. And I think if you like watch Seven when you're 15, it has a pretty meaningful effect on you.
He's awesome in Seven.
But
yeah, I mean, like that's an interesting comparison point. This is sort of an odd conversation to have, but Usual Suspects was made by someone who's pretty despicable and stars Kevin Spacey. And yet I think people still like with Usual Suspects is on cable will like give it 10 minutes.
No doubt.
See, I disagree. I think that movie's lost a lot of its.
I'm not saying like morally that's like whether or not that's the right
Nobody's
decision.
Nobody's gonna be like, hey man, I was watching Usual Suspects last night. And you'd be like,
really? I don't think it's as kind of like deleted in the culture as American Beauty is.
Yeah. Also, I mean the long-term cultural impact of Usual Suspects goes far beyond American Beauty.
Yeah, Kaiser Soze
People
is
still
not
talk
going
about
anywhere.
Kaiser Soze. Yeah.
Spacey's 90s. He's doing stuff like, Glengarry and Ross. He's in that. He's in Consenting Adults. He's in The Refs, Swimming with Sharks. Never really happens.
Mm-hmm.
Then Usual Suspects. It happens. He becomes a star. Then he does Outbreak. He does the 7. He's not even billed.
Yeah.
He just pops in the last 20 minutes. You're like, what the fuck? Spacey's in this? They hid that.
John Doe has the upper hand.
Does A Time to Kill, which I thought he was really good in that. LA Confidential, he's good in that. Has a couple misses. And then American Beauty at the end of this decade. And then the wheels come off for him just in general because his next movies are Pay It Forward, K-Pax, The Life of David Gale, like Beyond the Sea. It just
I think he was trying to be. I think he tried to turn into Tom Hanks after this.
Yes,
where he's like, I'm going to be the biggest movie star in the world. I'm
Didn't
going to
work.
make life affirming.
I think he's a good example too of how movie acting changes over time.
Absolutely.
He was like a pretty snide know-it-all as a persona. Like a lot of his characters are, if not the smartest guy in the room, like the smarmiest guy in the room. And in a time that actually was kind of appealing. That was kind of the sense of the culture in the late 90s. It was kind of like, the cleverest guy gets to win. And that's not celebrated in the same way that it is now. And an American Beauty type figure, what's his name? Lester Burnham?
Mm-hmm.
Like that guy, people just think that guy's an asshole now. They don't think he's like some revelatory spirit who's upending the boring nature of getting older in America.
Right. And that's just like middle class suburban life is not something.
So I should try a new persona?
No, you're not like Lester Burnham.
You should be a late middle-aged ecstasy guy who gets really into electronic music.
You should be like William Fichter's character in Go, start selling Amway.
When I bring back the Saint,
to come over.
you guys are going to want to be friends with me.
Bring back the Saint.
So if you could redo the Academy Awards from this year, we could take Spacey's award back. I'll give you the possibilities.
Okay. This is a fun game.
Russell Crowe in The Insider, which we did on the Rewatchables 1999 a few months ago. Denzel Washington in Hurricane. Sean Penn's Sweet and Lowdown was nominated. I don't even remember that movie.
Woody
Richard
Allen
Farnsworth in The Straight Story. You could do Hanks in Green Mile. You can do anyone from Magnolia or Sixth Sense or Election, whatever you want to go there. Or my personal choice for Best Actor of 1999, not nominated.
Chris Ballard for The Machine.
Matt Damon, Talented Mr. Ripley.
Oh,
good
He's
one.
fucking awesome in that movie.
Notably not featured in Rewatchables 1999. So stay tuned for a future Rewatchables episode.
There
featuring
might
the
be a
Talented Mr.
Fight
Ripley.
Club and Talented Mr. Ripley might be making an appearance.
This is a tough one. I thought Cruise and Eyes Wide Shut was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
I think that's like didn't get nominated, but could have been.
What do you think, Chris?
I am partial to, I think, Russell Crowe, an Insider.
Insider?
Yeah.
Did you make that? You made that case for us a few months ago,
Yeah.
right?
You love Crow.
I do love Crowe. I think The Insider is probably the top 2 or 3 movies of this year.
Do you think there should have been a retroactive Oscar for Caruso and Proof of Life?
This will be DeMille Award?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thalberg for
You guys
Caruso.
still have Rushmore, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, we didn't do Rushmore? Let's do Rushmore.
We've become friends, haven't we?
Yes.
Good. And, the truth is, neither one of us have the slightest idea where this relationship is going. We can't predict the future.
We don't have a relationship, Max.
But we're friends.
Yes, and that's all we're going to be.
That's all I meant by relationship. You want me to grab a dictionary?
No, I just want to make
You're not fond of Wes Anderson.
I'm not.
Not one of your guys.
Thought you two could handle it.
Are you fond of Wes? I don't know if you and I have ever talked about Wes Anderson, Chris.
I was not a huge early Wes Anderson fan.
Okay.
I really love Life Aquatic. I like Darjeeling a lot.
Darjeeling Limited.
Yeah.
It's a hot take.
Rushmore kind of passed me by. I was very big into Bottle Rocket, but Rushmore kind of passed me by.
It sounds stupid to say it, but it's probably one of the most influential movies I've ever seen, Rushmore. For me personally.
You love Wes Anderson.
I don't know that I do anymore, but I think he's one of the first people who I saw and identified after Tarantino as this is a person's style. Like they're making a movie that is their movie.
Yeah.
And it looks a certain way, and the way that the characters are interacting with each other is very specific.
That's how I feel when I listen to The Watch with Chris Ryan.
Still cranking.
Still kicking along.
Still every day.
Still chugging, man.
Get in there,
Still
get in the
chugging.
bakery, make the donuts.
Still cranking.
Donut dick.
The Watch.
Still cranking it, man.
I was going to
Fucking
say
Watch.
Wes Anderson is the other side of the coin from Spike Jonze. So Wes Anderson is what
He
happens when you're
capitalized
like,
on it.
I'm going to make a movie every 18 months, and they're pretty much the same movie.
And he's managed to get weirdly more popular. I mean, Wes Anderson movies, the Grand Budapest Hotel was a huge hit. It made like $150 million, which is it's a very strange movie to make that much money, but he's one of the last guys to turn up like a kind of boutique fame into real success.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people from his generation, either, like David Fincher makes Netflix
Mindhunter.
TV shows now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Paul Thomas Anderson waits 5 years before he makes another masterpiece. There's a Wes Anderson movie coming out next year called The French Dispatch. It's going to have 15 movie stars in it. In a lot of ways, he kind of market corrected Woody Allen. He is doing the same thing.
European cosmopolitan,
Like that.
pop intellectual.
Yes.
Yeah.
Has a very strong fan base that will always show up for his movies. He kind of bounces around thematically and genre-wise. Sometimes he does an animated movie, sometimes a pure comedy, sometimes something with more heart. Sometimes it's about kids. Sometimes it's about aging people. But it's always Wes Anderson.
Yeah.
When you're watching it, you know exactly what you're watching. And Rushmore, even more so than Bottle Rocket. Like Bottle Rocket is a riff on heist movies.
Yeah.
Rushmore is a very, very weird personal movie. And it's also the beginning of indie darling Bill Murray. And Bill Murray's career kind of goes in a different direction after that movie, where he starts to work with only the directors he wants to work with.
Like Jarmusch and
Like only indie filmmakers. He's not as worried about being the guy from Stripes anymore. So it's a pretty important movie.
I don't have much against Wes Anderson. I respect it. It's more the fans that bug me. It's settle down.
Well, it's it's perceived as a very
Settle
kind
down
of
a little bit.
a lot of Troy from Reality Bites fans.
You don't totally understand it because I'm smarter than
literary,
you.
Yeah. It's
same people I
unfortunate.
hated in college who loved stupid books.
But I don't even think that his movies are like that. I don't think his movies are like comp lit grad students.
I know. It's just
They're not. They're like I
there's a
read
pretentiousness to
Franny
it.
and Zooey.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know?
Like J.D. Salinger people.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Bottle Rocket was fine.
8mm better though.
So who wins?
8mm, one of the most rewatchable movies of the era, but Bill does not care for Rushmore.
Mary, the film is real. Who gets Best Picture if we take it away from American Beauty?
8mm. Schumacher gets his well-deserved
Insider?
Oscar.
6 Cents?
Did you know American Beauty won picture?
You know what I would do?
Screenplay,
I'll tell you what I would
actor,
do.
cinematography,
Director.
Director.
I'll
It
tell you
won
what I would
all
do.
of them.
I would give Best Picture to The Matrix.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Oh, wow.
It's a
Because
good
The
call.
Matrix
Not
is,
even nominated.
it was easily the most influential movie from that year. It's the biggest movie from that year. It still holds it's got such a hold over our imagination now.
Mhm.
So many of the things in The Matrix people still talk about now.
So not American Pie?
Do you know the Green Mile got nominated?
Yeah.
We didn't talk about the Green Mile.
We didn't talk about it during Shawshank either.
Not a fan of the Green Mile.
Do Green Mile really quick.
Sure, let's do.
Green Mist. It's the whole movie. Good Hanks. Hanks had earned a lot of collateral at
Uh-huh.
that point where he's like, I'm in a movie. And I'm like, okay, Tom Hanks, I'll be there.
Hanks did a couple where you're just like, did you just do the same movie? Like, did you just keep shooting a movie and then they chopped it up into 3? Like Green Mile, Road to Perdition.
Yep.
I always with Catch Me If You Can and The Terminal. I was like, did you guys just stay in an airport the entire time? And Spielberg took a turn and then Scorsese took a turn.
It was like he was trying to get away a little bit from being America's uncle.
Yeah.
Or
Do you know
America's
how
dad.
long the Green Mile was?
It's like 3+, right?
It's 3 hours and 9 minutes long.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
I mean,
insane.
that alone
Because they
was
thought they had
obscene.
Shawshank, right?
Yeah, they didn't.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
It was a hit, though. There was
Because
a
of
big
Tom
Michael
Hanks,
Clark Duncan moment.
Yeah.
It was Tom Hanks, Shawshank, and Michael Clark Duncan. Who is this guy? And the reality is, if they made this movie 10 years later, it would have been Shaq. They wouldn't have even had an actor. They would have gone stunt
It
casting.
would have been, did you say Shaq?
I think Shaq would have been the Michael Clark Duncan role.
Michael Clark Duncan tried so
I
hard
just,
to
because
market
you said
correct
that
Ving
like
Rhames,
so
and
much
Ving
like,
Rhames was like, fuck
everybody
that.
should know that they would have
I just think that's how they would have thought of how to make this movie
so the
successful.
Uncut Gems version of Green Mile is Shaq.
Yeah.
As Michael Clark Duncan.
100,000%. They're like,
Safdies.
why are we
One.
getting a tall actor who looks like Shaq? Let's just get Shaq.
Should we
What's
see
the
if
guy
the
doing?
Safdies
He's-
want to remake the Green Mile?
Yeah. It's Sandler in Hanks's role
It's the Greener Mile.
and Michael Olowokandi as
I have another length thing for you. Do you know how long the Oscars were that year?
I don't.
4 hours and 9 minutes.
Oof. Well, you know my take on this. It should be longer.
Did you go
We
10
do it
hours?
once a year. Who cares? Why is everybody so upset about these award shows being long? Well, what am I going to watch? Some bullshit medical drama on CBS? No. Make the Oscars 7 hours.
every award. Tons of montages.
Show me
tons of
every fucking
tributes,
montage.
Musical numbers.
There should be clips from every movie during the presentation of every award.
So I'm not against it, but I think it should just start at 7 p.m. Eastern time.
I'd be fine
And
with
put
that.
the first hour, load a lot of like the shittier ones. in
Yeah,
there.
that'd be fine with me.
Yeah.
Well, like people who are like, oh, it's too long. I have shit to do. It's like, go do it. Don't watch.
This is
no one's forcing
you're
you to
doing-
watch the Oscars.
This is Sean's Trey Wingo take. This is like if you don't like the fact that the Super Bowl is 7-3, change the channel.
The Trey Wingo meltdown after the Super Bowl is one of the funniest things ever.
This is Fantasy's Trey Wingo. It's like make this Oscars even longer, and if you don't like it, leave.
It sounds like you're workshopping it for the hottest take, and I like it.
Okay, maybe we'll carry
The
it over
Oscars
there.
should be longer.
Great,
It's
good call.
Not against it.
Thank you.
Yeah, why are we trying to cut stuff that
Yeah,
we like?
I like it.
Who gives a shit?
I like
There
the
should
red
be
carpet.
more awards. Breakthrough performance, best stunt, add all that shit. We need all
So
of
you
it.
want it to be the MTV
great.
Movie Awards, Best Kiss.
But with a dollop of prestige.
Okay.
That's what we like about the Oscars. It's maximalist. What do you want? A fucking 75-minute Oscars? Fuck that.
Don't get mad at me.
Do you know what won Best Original Song in the Oscars that year? It was You'll Be in My Heart from Tarzan. Music and lyrics by Phil Collins. This is the worst Oscars of all time. What were we doing?
It's a tough one.
The
For such
big
a great
ones
movie
were
year.
Hilary Swank won for Boys Don't Cry. Oh, I guess we didn't talk about
Did she
that
go
one
back
either.
to back? When's $1 Million? 2 years later?
I think it's 2003.
Yeah, it must
No,
have been, 'cause
she won like 5
I
years
was
later.
dating my wife
We
when
didn't
I
talk
saw
about Boys Don't Cry, but that was a really good movie.
Yeah.
It's not a rewatchable, but
It's a tough sit.
it was really affecting. And she was coming off, she had been Steve Sanders' waitress girlfriend in 90210 like 2 years earlier. And she was the next Karate Kid. And it's like, wait, she's in a dramatic movie and she's playing a transgender character and it's really good. And she might get nominated for an Oscar. It just broke my brain. And then the movie was actually good and she was really good.
Who were the other Best Actress nominees that year?
Annette Bening.
For American
Make
Beauty.
a strong case for her.
Annette Bening has never won an Oscar, by the way, which is still one of those. Every time she's in a movie, people are like, "This is finally going to be her time," and she has not yet won one.
It's going to happen.
Yeah.
She'll have her.
I
like
thought it was
Julianne
going to
Moore.
be for the Mike Knowles movie a couple
20th
years
Century
ago.
Women. Yeah.
This also had
She was great
Meryl
in that.
Streep,
She was.
Music of the Heart. Julianne Moore, Into the Affair.
That was good, actually.
That's a good movie.
Shout out to that movie.
Janet McTeer for
Graham Greene novel.
Tumbleweeds.
Wow.
Wow, McTeer.
The
Getting in under the line on the 90s.
the Best Supporting Actress, Angelina Jolie won for Girl Interrupted.
Mm-hmm.
Toni Collette for The Sixth Sense. Chloe Sevigny for Boys Don't Cry. She was really in that.
Mm-hmm.
Samantha Morton, Sweet and Low Down. And Catherine Keener for
8 millimeter.
Yeah. She's great in that.
No,
Was it for
actually,
Malkovich?
Yeah, it's for Malkovich. Supporting actor.
Was Machine nominated for supporting actor?
I don't see him.
Frank
Ballard?
Sabatka?
No?
I don't see Chris Bauer. Supporting actor Michael Caine won for The Cider House Rules, which must have been like career achievement,
It
right?
was such a saccharine performance.
Because the other ones were Cruise and Magnolia, which would have been awesome.
Oh my God, I can't wait to talk about that. Oh my God.
That's our last one coming next week on
It's a
Rewatchables
fucking
1999.
crime against art that he didn't win for that.
Frank T.J. Mackey.
Michael Clark Duncan. Jude Law and Talented Mr. Ripley, who's
Also
fucking
amazing.
awesome in that
Yeah,
movie.
Amazing.
And then Haley Joel Osment's Sixth Sense, which is like, stop with the child actors.
So
Come on.
you think there should be an age requirement for an Oscar?
I think we should have a Best Child Actor Oscar.
But then what happens?
with it? One more award.
What
Make
happens
it
when
longer.
there are years where children aren't in good movies? So then are you
Still
just
gotta do it.
giving it to Jacob Tremblay for Good Boys?
It's like the
Honestly, he
entire
earned it.
You're gonna give him a fucking Oscar. Annette Bening hasn't won an Oscar, and you're gonna give a child an Oscar
Let me ask you
for
this.
being in Good Boys.
Let me ask you this. Have you seen Good Boys?
Are you telling me that it's better?
Have you seen it?
No, I haven't.
Well, there you go.
Good Boys is spectacular.
Pretty good.
That you didn't checkmate me because you're not answering the question of what do you do when it's no Anna Paquin, no Haley Joel Osment, like no significant child.
Wasn't
performance.
Tremblay
Every year
nominated
we have
for
kid
Room?
actors.
Yeah,
What
I'm
are
not
you
saying
talking
that
about?
you can't be. I'm just saying that what happens
We have
when there
It
isn't
Too,
a
and
role
we have
like
Good
that.
Boys. We're good. We have enough for a category.
Yeah.
It can be male
who
and
from
female.
It Too would you nominate?
Oh man, who wouldn't I nominate?
Oh, you just get a whole suite, all
Yeah.
the kids?
The redheaded girl was great.
Isaiah Mustafa from the Old Spice commercials. He's good.
The black kid in Good Boys, who I can't remember, was
He's
I thought a
hilarious.
comedic genius.
Yeah, he's very funny.
I really like. I'm talking about buying stock. I love that kid.
Mhm.
I wish I knew his name, but he was awesome.
I'm glad you guys don't run the Oscars. That's all I'm saying.
Child
Put me in
child
charge of the
Oscars,
Oscars. I'll fix that shit.
and the trophy is this size. It's the size of
No,
this
it should be bigger.
Smart water
It
bottle.
should be much bigger. And they have to like lug it off, and that's the bit.
It's just it's a little tiny. It's like the Peabody Award. You just kind of carry out your little tiny award.
Sean's gonna give like an Oscar to like the baby in Neighbors.
What would be your age range? Like
performance.
14 and under, Sean?
Yeah, I think so. Pre-adolescence.
So Zoe Simmons is like 5'8". She can't win the child Oscars. I think it's 13 and under.
5'8".
So
There's a
wait,
height
are we doing height
requirement.
requirements?
Well, that'd be weird.
What
Like, hey,
are some of
child
the other
Oscars.
categories
for
you want to put
Cruise.
it? Well, let me hear some of your other
Yeah,
categories.
true.
What are some other things you need for the child?
No,
actor?
categories. Like, would you have best animal performance?
Oh yeah, best dog.
Remember when Sorkin was going on about the horse and War Horse?
Yeah.
How that was one of the great horse
We talked about how that
performances?
should be like an Oscar.
Sorkin says yes.
A Dog's Purpose, which I know neither of you have seen.
Haven't seen it.
I've seen Dog's Purpose 1 and 2.
Is that the Milo
We might own
Ventimiglia
that.
one?
No, Dennis Quaid.
Oh,
The
okay.
dog dies.
Oh, yeah, it
and
comes
keeps
back.
coming back, trying to find its original owner.
Yeah, you're thinking of The Art of Racing in the Rain, and I think Best Dog would be a really good
That
performance.
should be best animal because
The
you can
sad
have
thing
horses,
is that
dogs,
if you were
and
like,
cats.
we're gonna bring out a bunch of cute dogs and give one an Oscar, you'd probably get like 1 million more people watching.
I saw this documentary.
Guess what the highest rated segment of the Oscars would be?
It's true.
The fucking pet segment.
There's a movie coming out called The Elephant Queen. There's a lot of fucking elephants in this movie. They would be up for Oscars. Think about it.
Didn't Pattinson act with a bunch of elephants before?
In the movie Water for Elephants?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were there some elephants in that?
There were some elephants, yeah.
So we're adding children
Animals
and pets.
Uh-huh.
It's fucking no brainer.
And then
We just increased the
best
Oscars
kill,
rating by 10
best
million.
kill from John Wick 3.
Honestly, Best Kill is a good category. Who says no to Best Kill?
What about the
We got
best
Joker this year, you know?
the best movie that centers around a snuff film Career Achievement Awards for George C. Scott or Nick Cage? You have to pick.
And every year, it's the same awards,
Same
and
thing
the
over and
same
over again.
nominees.
It's George C. Scott.
It's like Auburn,
Nick Cage.
Alabama, and we just do it for like 50 years.
to vote every year.
George C. Scott has 17 posthumous Oscars for hardcore.
How does he keep doing it?
And then 1 year, Bill just interrupts it and gives it to Pacino for cruising.
No, because we're due for another snuff film movie.
Okay.
Somebody's got to dive into the underworld and try to find out what happened to somebody.
I feel like this is a
Just
good
do it.
task for you.
Cool.
This is how you get your fingers working again, is you write your
Yeah,
snuff
that's
film
good.
masterpiece.
This will bring you back to
I don't
final
want to
draft.
write it. I just want to go see it. So that was it for the Rewatchables 99. Thank you for listening. It's presented by Luminary Media. We'll be back next week with our last film of the series, the most complicated film of the series, the longest film of the series, and I'm the most torn on this movie of any movie we've done, period, from this year, Magnolia. Can't wait.